Welcome to the ACS Technical Advisory Board podcast series, where we talk all things tech including data, cyber, AI, blockchain, and Internet of Things. Meet your host, Dr. David Cook, Vice President of the Australian Computer Society's Technical Boards. David is a technology advocate dedicated to advances and progression of computing and human-computer interaction. In today's episode, David will be talking with ACS Cyber Security Committee member, Kaustubh Vazalwar. Join us as we discuss cybersecurity resiliency and recovery, as well as the differences between the maturity of cybersecurity in Australia compared to other nations.
Today, we're talking with Kaustubh Vazalwar. He is an expert in resiliency services in terms of cybersecurity. He's worked in every major continent on the world, and he's a member of the ACS National Committee on Cybersecurity. Kaustubh, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, David. Great to be on this podcast here.
Now, you're an expert in resiliency. So how important, in terms of resiliency services, how important is that to cybersecurity?
Absolutely critical, David. Organizations today in every vertical across every different region are going through a variety of different changes. We see organizations using a variety of different technologies and capabilities to reach out to customers to provide new services, new capabilities further, faster, and much more efficiently. As such, the importance of data and the importance of maintaining operational capabilities uptime all the time is essentially extremely critical. From that perspective, the resilience and to ensure that these capabilities are maintained, the reputation of the organization is maintained, the compliance capabilities of the organization are maintained are absolutely critical in today's day and age. I like to take an example typically of a Formula One car. And typically, I like to kind of show from time to time as well. So, if you look at, for example, what a Formula One car goes through, a tremendous amount of stresses when it actually goes through various different laps. Now, every car essentially comes to a pit stop. Essentially, what we like to call as a recovery time. That particular recovery time can essentially mean the difference between the first place and second place, a few seconds of difference. The same thing applied to organizations as well. The amount of time we end up essentially during recovery time period when something goes wrong could be a business issue, could be a technology issue, could be a environmental issue, essentially impacting our capabilities. If we don't have enough time and effort and essentially investment spent in planning towards being resilient enough from all these factors, if we don't know what we are protecting, we are going to essentially have setbacks from the perspective of competition, from the perspective of our customer base, from the perspective of our long-term reputation.
And I guess we mindful, obviously, that the CrowdStrike issue that took place is a classic example where some organisations very quickly recovered, and others had a much slower performance area in terms of their resilience, their ability to get up and running.
Absolutely. I think that was an eye-opener again. Now, resiliency as a space has a point of view of waking up organizations from time to time. It's important that we have organizations stay on top of things. It's important to take a proactive approach because these kind of disruptions, these kind of issues, they're not going to essentially stop. One day we have COVID as an essential issue disrupting organizations. The other day, like you mentioned, CrowdStrike. Taking that particular approach from an end-to-end enterprise risk management perspective, knowing what our key capabilities, our dependencies, our real concerns are, right? It could be a third-party issue in this particular case. Knowing where we need to essentially invest never really should stop, right? The other thing that was very clearly highlighted during the CrowdStrike issue is the requirement to invest not only in terms of capabilities and third-party risk management, but also the requirement to invest in essentially the mental health of the resources who are essentially going through all these issues and are trying to essentially support the organizations over a longer period of time as well. That aspect continues to be a critical aspect, which is often ignored during resiliency, but it's very important to make sure that we manage the mental health of all the resources who are going through these particular issues within the organization. And this includes the executives, this includes obviously the operational team members, this includes right from to the human resources team members to obviously even physical security. Resiliency encompasses everything, right? Do you really have the policies, procedures, processes, and steps to ensure that you can maintain your operations throughout the disruption?
So apart from resilience then, what's the most important challenge for you in cybersecurity?
I think the most important challenge, David, is essentially translating the cybersecurity terms, the requirements, essentially into business terms. Uh, as I mentioned, I think every organization is going through a change. They are on a journey from a maturity point of view as to where they are essentially targeting to go throughout their life cycle. They're bringing in new capabilities. They're bringing in, and they're facing new challenges throughout. When we put it an angle of cybersecurity, it's important to essentially ensure that we're able to translate the requirements into business terms, help our leaders within the organization understand the impact to business objectives, their blueprint, their roadmap, if these specific challenges are not met. It's not a unknown right now that the leaders across these particular industries across the globe are essentially facing challenges on a variety of different issues, and the cybersecurity challenges, including the compliance requirements on top, are only adding to it. And it's essentially important to make sure that we are able to translate the requirements into what it means from a business perspective, and that's one of the active challenges that I face on a day-to-day basis, David.
So, Costa, you've got global experience, and I just wonder, is there a difference between the maturity, perhaps, of cybersecurity in Australia and from what you can see in the rest of the world? Is there room to move there?
I think we are on a journey right now, David. I think the Australian government is obviously putting in and has the right to vision, if I may put it right now at this particular point in time, working towards the 2030 objective and goals that we have, which is great to have. That being said, I think it needs solid partnership within the industry. We need to make sure what we have as vision is practical, can essentially help the organizations on the ground, and takes into consideration the requirements of each and every different industry. What we also see from time to time is, awfully many times, these visions, these objectives, not translating into deliverables when isn't enough investment from that perspective, resources as well as budget. And we see that in certain different geographies where there is solid investment, like for example in Europe, in the US today, where the vision is backed up by solid investments in the space as well. I think that's quite important for us to make sure while we have a very good vision. Now, we need to make sure that the industry is taken on board as well. We take into consideration the inputs, the feedback as to what are the practical challenges for organization, and also help them with the right set of resources and investments from time to time. That will help us drive towards those focused goals that we have today.
So let's talk about how you see the future. And in particular, what will resiliency services and cybersecurity, what will they look like in, say, 5 years' time? What's going to change?
I think we are already looking at the change, David. Massive amount of change with the technological benefits that organizations have at hand today, right from the capabilities of artificial intelligence to machine learning to quantum computing. They are changing the face of how resiliency has capabilities, including, for example, cybersecurity's capabilities, are going to look at. We are effectively in the next 2 to 3 years moving increasingly towards, for example, utilizing these particular capabilities with an approach, so that we can effectively have a proactive approach towards our resiliency, proactive approach towards our security posture. Can we increasingly use these AI, machine learning, and other capabilities to, for example, have much more better predictive analysis, help us avoid these particular different failure modes, which will effectively help potentially reducing the vulnerabilities that we have in the system? Absolutely. And 5 years, we are increasingly going to move towards that particular space whereby these technologies are going to help us and are going to help us towards a much more proactive and much more faster, better, more efficient approaches towards resiliency and cybersecurity.
Kaustubh Vazalwar, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, David. Great talking to you as always.
To find out more about how the ACS is powering Australia's technology brilliance, visit us at our website, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Want to get involved with the ACS technical boards? Email us at tab@acs.org.au and tell us a bit about yourself. Join us for more thought leadership, ideas, and information through our other podcasts on the ACS YouTube, Facebook, or on LinkedIn.